Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scots Scheme with Macalester College head football coach Coach Jennison. The Scots Scheme is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Macalester coach questions about the Scots, football or sports in general, or just seek the coach's wisdom about life events that are going on out there. In this week's episode, the coach discusses with us what he's expecting against St. Norbert this week. He talks to us a little bit about his priorities for recruiting this offseason, and the coach shares his appreciation for his beautiful wife, Anna. So let's get right to the Scots Scheme.
Well, let's welcome back Coach Jennison this week. Coach, let's first of all begin with team updates from you.
Thanks, Rob. It's good to be back, and thank you for doing this. Team updates, we're coming off. So our players are rested. We took some time off last weekend, had some lighter practices last week, and had a pretty normal week this week. But really excited to get back playing and hopefully finish out the season strong against a quality opponent in St. Norbert.
Well, let's talk about your bye week a little bit from last week. What were some things that you were looking to accomplish as the week was going along heading into this week?
Well, I wanted to get fresh. I wanted to rest our players. I wanted them to be excited about the last week of the season and the last opportunity to play together. And I think we've accomplished that. You know, we haven't done as much conditioning as we typically have because, you know, at this point in the season, talking to our strength coaches and whatnot, Coach Murray, he basically said it's not going to do you any good anyway. So we wanted to be fresh. We've lightened practices a little bit. We've gone a little bit shorter. And again, I want to be ready to go. And hopefully St. Norbert, you know, it's been a long season for them. Remember when their bye week was, but I thought it was pretty early in the season. Yeah, it was. It was back in September. So they've been grinding for a long time, and my hope is that they've got tired legs and we've got fresh legs. So that's what we really wanted to get out of the bye week and then into this week is to get healthy and to get fresh and to be fast and ready to go come Saturday.
Now heading into this week, Monmouth defeated St. Norbert last weekend, so that pretty much clinched them for the conference title.
Yep.
So you're heading into this week looking at it going, I know a lot of people have talked about this isn't as important of a game because you're not really fighting for the conference champion. Is that kind of the way that you see this here, or how does this go by the way you're looking at it?
I don't see it that way at all. You know, to me, anytime the Fighting Scots step on the field, we want to give our best effort and we want to play our best. We want to play hard and together to represent Macalester in the right way, respect the game, but also to represent the football players that came before us and the people that built this football program. You know, we are playing for more than that. You know, we are playing for second place in the conference, which is a pretty big deal. Not to mention that if we get to 8 wins, it would be only the second time in school history that the Macalester team has had 8 wins. 2 years ago, we had 9 wins. And so actually it never happened that the school has had 8 wins, but again, the 1 year with 9 2 years ago. So that would be great. In addition, our seniors are 1 win away from tying the record for most wins in a career. So there are some unique things that we can accomplish with another win. But you know, I'm the type of person that I don't get wrapped up in conference standings or wins and losses, that type of thing. I want to play our very best at every opportunity. And so I'd be very disappointed in our team if we felt that way. And I haven't seen that at all in practice, that we're not fired up to play this game, or we're not putting in any effort this week because all of a sudden we can't win a conference championship anymore. That's not our mindset. And again, I haven't seen it out of our players.
Talking about St. Norbert, very diverse offense run by the Knights that averaged over 400 yards per game and 40 points per game. Are there things that you try to focus on to try to slow them down some?
Well, the hard part about that is they're very balanced. So the simple answer is yes, but you're trying to limit them to do certain things, but at the same time, you can't really take away everything, because if we focus on stopping them from running the football and we bring a safety down into the box, or we change our defense in some capacity so we're very run heavy, well, obviously there are big holes in the passing game at that point. Or if you're, dropping everybody back and you're spreading everything out like we do in our in our dime package and nickel package and stuff like that, well, then they're just going to be able to run the football on you. So, you have to be sound with what you're doing, but they're a good enough team where if we just tried to take away the run completely, well, they're smart enough, they're good enough, they can execute, and they're smart enough as coaches where they're just going to start passing the ball. Or the opposite, if we just focus on their passing game, well, they're going to run the football. And again, they're good enough to do all of that. They've got I think, a really good quarterback. He's a senior. He's a good leader. He runs the ball well. He throws it effectively. They're strong up front. They've got backs that run hard. They've got receivers that catch and that are athletic. So there's no easy answer because they can hurt you a lot of different ways. So again, I think, we're just going to try to play our defense, be who we are, mix it up on them, give them some different looks. We'll play base at times. We'll bring pressure at times. We'll do a lot of different things to them, and hopefully every now and then we've got a good caller that someone can step up and make a play. But no, I don't think there's really anything special you can do with a team that's so balanced because, again, they can hurt you in a lot of different ways.
Now, I know you talked a little bit about the fact of this is the last game for your seniors out there. So I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what it's meant for you to coach these guys, Trey, Glenn, Forrest, as examples, your captains that you've had this season, and a lot of the other seniors that have meant so much to you and to the program. What's this like for you personally?
It's sad. I think I'm the type of coach that builds very strong relationships with the players in our program. I respect them for who they are as young men, their work ethic in terms of football and how they carry themselves off the field. And I get connected with them, and it's sad to see them go and to know they're done. At the same time, I'm excited for them and moving on with the new parts of their life and the new opportunities. And I'm hopeful that maybe some of the lessons that you preach about in terms of your football program will have carried over, and those are things that they'll remember at some point in their life. So you hope that you impacted their life in some capacity. But you'll have to ask those guys. I actually think we do a pretty good job of that. But it's bittersweet. I'm sad that they're leaving, but excited for them and their new opportunities. They're really excited today. Josh Conlon. Josh is one of my favorite people in the world. And Josh came from Honolulu, Hawaii, came here, didn't know much about Macalester. He didn't even visit because of the way the recruiting process worked and the college search process and whatnot. But Trey Muraoka was here, and Josh and Trey had went to high school together, and they had numerous conversations, and we had numerous conversations with Josh and his family about Macalester, and he ended up choosing Macalester without ever having seen it, and came up here and worked his way into a starting linebacker position as a sophomore, was playing at a very high level. I think was the player of the game defensively for us, and then a week later ended up getting basically a concussion, which he came into Macalester with numerous concussions from high school, and basically had to make the tough decision that it was time for him to retire. And one of the things I'm proud of is Josh stuck with our football program. He cared enough about his teammates and coaches in MAC football that he wanted to continue to be a part of our program. It just wasn't going to be on the field anymore. So he's been a manager for us. And he actually was gone a couple of days this week because Amazon or Google, I can't remember who it was. One of these big companies flew him down to somewhere in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, or something like that. And he had an interview and got a job offer out of the deal. And he came by today and gave me a hug and said thanks. And it made my day because obviously he's pretty excited about the next steps of his life. And I am too, because he's going to do great things. And so those are the things that, that make me proud to be a head football coach at Macalester. When you see the young men in your program have success upon graduation, and they come back to you and they say thank you that you impacted them in some way, that means the world to me. It means more than wins and losses. So I'm really, really happy for Josh. And I guess the point I'm making is, I get close to these players. I think people who know me understand that, and it's sad to see them go, but I'm excited for their opportunities and excited for them to have this lifelong connection to Macalester in our football program.
Well, now I know when my Amazon order is late, who to wind up calling there. So,
well, he hasn't taken the job yet, so we'll see. young man, he's going to have a lot of opportunities. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not answering the phone there at Amazon, so that'll be true. So, okay, let's head to our fan questions. Phil in Atlanta asks, do you feel like you have established your quarterback for the next couple of seasons now with Cody?
Well, Cody's done a great job, and it's not really surprising to any of us that know him that he's played very well. When we recruited him out of Thornton Fractional South in Lansing, Illinois, we knew that he had that type of ability. He's a big, tall young man. He's got a lot of poise. He's got character, the type of character that you want in a starting quarterback. I remember when I went down to his school to meet with him. The first person I met at the school was the lady in front that, gives you your little visitor tag to come into the school. And she asked me what I was there for. And I mentioned I was there to see Cody Petrich. And she said, she referred to him as her Cody or their Cody, like they didn't want to give him up, and she said how everybody loved him and whatnot in that school. And so we knew we were getting a pretty special young man when he came here. And, it took a little time to develop and learn our schemes and whatnot, but obviously he's when he got an opportunity this year, he's ran with it and he's done great. So yes, we feel excellent about where he's at. At the same time, at the quarterback position, you're one blown protection away, one hit away from, the next guy being up. So we certainly need Christian Adams to continue to develop as a quarterback. And Johnny Bice, I tell you what, Johnny has really come along well this year. He's a freshman out of Fort Dodge, Iowa, and he's been great. He's really, I love how he carries himself. The players respect him. They love him. He was voted onto our leadership council this year, and he's gotten better and better throughout the course of the year. And I tell you what, on the scout team 2 weeks ago, he was torching our defense. I think it was the Cornell week or right around there. He was just awesome. He was on fire. And that's against our starting defense with a scout team offense. So, we need these other quarterbacks, Christian and Johnny, to continue to develop and to continue to play hard. And because you never know what's going to happen. And certainly the way I view things is that next season is a new season, and to me, I don't believe anybody has a starting spot. You've got to earn that all over again, with your off-season work and doing the right things in the classroom and the right things on campus. So, yes, I feel very good about where Cody's at, but you can't, we can't predict what's going to happen years from now. So we need the other quarterbacks in our program to continue to develop, as well as Cody, because there's things that he can improve upon as well. And we need to continue to recruit quarterbacks, which we're hoping to bring in at least one, talented quarterback this year, possibly two. We'll see how it goes. So hope that answers the question.
Next up is Sam from St. Paul. He explains, I was looking at a statistic that really stood out to me. Your team scored 17 touchdowns in 36 opportunities in the red zone and had scores in 26 of those opportunities. Don't you need to be more efficient in situations like this?
We do need to be more efficient. There's no question about it. But one thing that I'm proud of is I think the last 2 weeks in the red zone against Cornell, I think we were perfect. I think we were 4 for 4 or 5 for 5 or something like that. And then the week before, whoever that was against, I think it was Beloit, we were 3 of 4 or 3 for 3, or maybe at Cornell it was 4 out of 5, and Beloit it was 3 for 3 or something like that. I know that we had been like 7 of 8 of our in our last couple of games, and then the Lake Forest game we were about 50%, so we weren't as good. So yes, it's definitely an area that we need to improve upon. It's not lost on us as coaches. I've actually taken some notes for next season to remind myself next season during fall camp and whatnot to actually do a little more red zone goal line work earlier in camp and maybe install some of our schemes and whatnot a little bit earlier so we can work on it earlier. At the same time, I also am the type of coach that I feel as though we're pretty aggressive when we get into the red zone in terms of going for it on fourth down as opposed to kicking. I know there's a lot of times where, people want us to kick field goals down there, but I tend to go for it a little bit more frequently down there. And one of the reasons is that if you miss a field goal down there, that all of a sudden the team gets the ball 20-yard line, if you're inside the 20, so you lose that field position. And plus I trust our defense too. I think we've got a really good defense. And if we don't convert at fourth down from the 5-yard line, well, we've got pretty good field position with a pretty good defense on the field, and they've got the ball at the 5-yard line. No, there was one instance this year where that happened. We went for it on a fourth down inside the 5. We didn't make it, but our defense held them down there, and we were able to score the next drive because we got really good field position out of it. So part of those statistics too are a little bit about my aggressive nature when it comes to fourth downs inside the red zone. But yes, overall, I do believe it's an area, red zone efficiency, goal line efficiency, that we need to get better at, and it's something we've talked about. It's not lost on us.
One thing I found interesting when I had read that question from Sam is that I went out to go look. Your defense has only allowed 13 touchdowns out of 28 opportunities. I thought, wow, that's a pretty impressive performance by your defense out there.
Yeah, our defense, I think the world of them, and I think the world of Marshall Mullenbach and his staff with what they do. We've got a great defensive staff, and I love our players over there. They are tough. They've got a great mentality, and it obviously starts with Marshall, but also Glenn Hartford, our defensive captain, who he's as tough as they come, and it doesn't really matter what situation they're put in. If we turn the ball over back in the red zone, they come out there with a great attitude, like, bring it on. It doesn't matter what circumstances are. We're gonna make a stop. It doesn't matter if we give the offense the ball at the 1-yard line, we're gonna get a stop. And they have that mentality. And now let's hope that we don't put our defense in those types of situations, because I think we're a much better defense when we make people drive on us. But at the same time, I love the leadership over there. I love the tenacity. I love how they go about their business. So yeah, we've done a really good job defensively in that regard as well, and I'm not surprised about that.
Frank from Colorado Springs asked of you. You talked about in last week's show that you haven't really been able to utilize the tight end position because of personnel. Do you recruit with a focus on trying to recruit more tight ends, or do you just adapt the offense for the future to work with what you have?
Well, it's really a matter of both. I mean, we certainly recruit tight ends. Mark Davies was an All-American tight end in college and played professionally as a tight end. So we would like to use a tight end more. So we're going to recruit tight ends, but we're also going to put the best athletes on our field. We have a young man, Luke Arsenal, right now, who's a sophomore, who he's got some ability. Now he's just a sophomore. He's still learning our schemes. We'd like to see him have a really good off season. I don't know that he had a great summer. We'd like to see him put on a little weight, but he is athletic. He's tough. He's physical. He's not afraid to hit people. So he's got some ability. And my hope is that he really has a great off season so that he can be a very viable option next year. But within our schemes, we're going to do what our talent allows. I think we talked about this last week. Sam Marshall, when we had Sam Marshall, he never came off the field, and he would line up as a tight end, as a fullback, an H-back. He would line up out wide. We put him in the slot. We did a bunch of different things with him. He never left the field because he was a really gifted player. So it really just depends upon our personnel, and I think that that's one of the strengths that Mark Davies brings as our offensive coordinator, is he uses our talent. He fits our scheme around our talent, because at a place like this, when you only bring in 20 players per year, we just can't go out to whatever school and say, okay, we want that tight end, or we want that fullback, or we want that receiver or quarterback or whatever. It doesn't work that way, because it's such a hard school to get into academically, and it's a hard school for a lot of families to afford, because there are lesser expensive options out there. Most schools in America are going to pay the players on our team a lot more money to go to their schools, because with most of our players being close to a 4.0 student and having test scores, ACT, SAT scores that are off the charts, they're going to raise the average of test scores and GPAs at these other schools. So like when we recruit against other schools in the great state of Minnesota, it's not uncommon for us to be sometimes $20,000 more expensive per year than St. Thomas down the street, or Hamlin or Gustavus or one of these other schools. So it's not as simple as just going out and recruiting a tight end. So we're kind of, because of who we are as a program, we're kind of stuck with who we have. So I think we have to do a good job as coaches, working our schemes around the talent we have. But again, we are trying to get a tight end. We're recruiting tight ends. And I really believe that Luke Arsenault, if he has a great offseason, can be someone that helps us there. in the future. But we also have to be smart about how we work our scheme. So I hope that makes sense. It's really, I didn't really answer the question, but there's a lot of answers in there.
No, that was a good answer. Charles from St. Paul would like to know from you. Coach, I was impressed how you lost a guy like Zach Hauser on the defense and found others who stepped up to lead. Who do you see in this next group to be the leaders of this group next season?
Oh, shoot. That's really asking me to look forward, look ahead, and I'm not real good at that. You know, it's hard to know now because a lot of it's going to depend upon the type of commitment that these young men make in the off season and in the summer. We've seen guys in the past who have a really good spring with us, and then in the summer they're gone at a big fancy internship, and they don't have as much time to or it's a lot harder to do the conditioning and the lifting and whatnot. They don't come back in as good a shape as they left in the spring. And then other people, you know, have a really great summers and continue to get better. So it's hard for me to predict that. I know we have some talented young players. Some of them are on the field right now. And some of them, you know, are basically playing a lot on scout teams. But I know that there are a lot of young men in our program that I think are going to come along very nicely. You know, Dean Smith, I'm just looking at my board here as we talk, and Dean Smith's a young man out of Carpinteria, California, who really had a good fall camp, and he's been sprinkled in a little bit this year on defense and on some special teams, and he's learned some lessons. You know, it's hard for a freshman to step in right away, and he's also the type of young man that I think is going to work extremely hard, and I love who he is as a person. I love his leadership skills. So he's someone that I have high expectations for moving forward. Another young man on defense that I see is Dane Blake. Dane is kind of in a similar situation to Dean. Dane is from Honolulu, Hawaii, from the Iolani School. And Dane has played a little bit on special teams here and there and played a little bit defensively again, too. Much like Dean, I think he's made some mistakes and learned some lessons this year, which is very normal for a freshman. But I really believe that he's got a big upside, and I'm excited to see him develop. Another guy on defense that I think of is Matt Heppelston on the defensive line, who hasn't played as much this year as I think he will in the future. I really think Matt's got a big upside. I know Joey Rothstein's played a bunch in there. I also think of on defense Harrison Reynolds and Josh Bart. So I'm basically going through our freshman class, and I think we've got some good ones in there that, you know, haven't contributed a whole lot this year, but have big upside. And I know that those guys are going to work really hard. In terms of the offense, you know, we talked about Johnny Bice before. Christian Rapport is a young man that we just recently moved from wide receiver to running back. He's done really well. He looks really good. He's obviously, you know, he's got to get more comfortable with the position, and that'll take some time, but he's really looked good. Reese Bresson has done well this year in some opportunities that we've given him as a slot receiver and carrying the ball. He's scored a couple touchdowns this year. Brendan Hodges has done great as an outside receiver. He's a big body, and he's been physical and has really good body control. So he's one that I'm really looking forward to see how his off season goes. And then we've got some linemen too. We've got 4 freshman linemen that we think can all be good players down the road if they commit themselves to the off-season workouts. Kevin Omott's played a little bit for us already, but Ethan Levin, Trevor Kramer, and Anthony Gore are guys that I expect will step up. And again, I'm really just highlighting the freshman class at this point, but I also think there are some sophomores too, and some juniors that you know, again, played maybe smaller roles, but with a really good off season. I expect that they will, you know, come into their own and make big contributions next year. So the one good part about our program is I think we have an awesome strength and conditioning program led by Steve Murray. Steve and I have worked at 3 different schools together, and we've had success at those 3 different schools. And I know that one of the huge reasons why we've had success is because the body types of the young men that we bring into the program, they change during their time with Steve. And Steve is an excellent strength and conditioning coach. I think he's the best in the country. I really believe that. And we've seen young men who come in that don't contribute much as freshmen, but they really buy into Steve's workout program, and they push themselves and they continue to work throughout the course of the summer. And it's not been uncommon for those same individuals to come back as sophomores and now make major contributions. And that's what I see out of this freshman class. I know that we've got some sophomores that I have those high expectations for next year as well. But again, I kind of just mainly focused on the freshman class. But I think we have I think we've got a lot of talent in our young classes, and I'm very excited to see how hard they're willing to work this off season.
One guy I wanted to ask you about in particular in listening to you, because of the fact that he really was just learning defense this year, was Liam Peoples, who you had talked about earlier in the year was just such a firestorm out there on the defensive line, but really never played the position before. I would think that next season, not a real vocal guy in terms of going out there to get people fired up, but I would think his play would really be a key for you.
Oh yeah, and it's been a key this year. We're nominating Liam for an all-conference player, so to me, he's not really under the radar or anything like that. He has been rock steady all year, and I'm not surprised. He was that kind of young man on offense too. When he played fullback for us, he would just maul people, and I know that when other teams watched him play, they were nervous because he's that type of a football player. We asked him to play defense last year for a couple of reasons. One, honestly, I thought it was safer for him. He would have some pretty big collisions at the fullback position with really large individuals, be it linebackers or defensive linemen at times. And I was concerned for his safety, his head really, that if he continued to have a lot of those collisions, that it might not be healthy for him. At the same time, we had a big need on the defensive line with Zach Hauser leaving, as you had mentioned, and the departure of some other defensive linemen the year before. And we really needed someone to step up. We really needed some toughness there. We really needed someone with athleticism. And Liam has been exactly that, which we knew he would be very successful. It wasn't, we had no concerns at all about that. And I know there was a couple other reasons why we moved him as well, in terms of just the offensive pieces that we had in place and him getting on the field more, because on offense, we have other athletes. So we were using him, but we weren't using him for 80 plays a game because we needed, if we get into third and long, we didn't necessarily need a fullback on the field or whatnot. So it was an opportunity for him to contribute more and for us to get more out of him and his skill set. So he has not disappointed this year. And like I said, we're going to be nominating him for all conference defensive lineman. We can't vote for our own players, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. Basically, and I like that. I think that's good because you have to earn the respect of the other coaches in the league, and hopefully he's done enough to do that. So, but yeah, he definitely will be a leader next year.
Next up is Joan from Dallas. She asked, I read that the AD at Baylor is worried about how all these sexual assaults might affect the search for a new head coach. Shouldn't they be more worried about teaching young men to not abuse women and to build a program that values the law?
I really don't know what's going on at Baylor, and I don't have any comments on that. But I definitely believe that as a head football coach, my number one job is to build quality young men. And if we're sending people out into the world that are abusing women and not valuing the law, whatever that entails or whatever that she's referring to, I'm not sure. But then I don't think that I'm doing my job very well if we're not sending quality people, quality young men out of our program. So again, I don't really know the situation with Baylor, so it's hard for me to comment on that. I'm kind of in my own little world this time of year, and it's all focused around St. Paul, Minnesota here at Macalester. But I do believe that, as coaches, we have that responsibility to build young men and to teach them the right ways to do things. I know I'm extremely proud. We've had some unique wins this year, and that's been great. And, seven wins in the season was the fourth most in school history, and that's cool. But I've never been more proud as a head football coach. 2 weeks ago, our players put out a video about locker room talk, and constantly I'm getting calls, I'm getting stopped when I walk across campus from professors, from staff, from different people associated with the college, and they're telling me how wonderful our video was and how it brought tears to their eyes and how they're showing it to their classes and how it's prompted discussion, and people have asked me for the link. And if you haven't seen this video, go to YouTube. I know there's a link on our Facebook page as well. I think you can maybe look up Macalester football locker room talk. I'm not sure if it comes up on YouTube if you search it there, but definitely on our Facebook page, or just email me. I'll give you the link. But never been more proud as a head football coach as what our captains did to address the issue of locker room talk, especially as a father of 3 young daughters. I just thought it was amazing. And I'm very fortunate to work with some quality young men who come from great families. And again, I couldn't be more proud of our team, our leadership this year. I really believe our senior class isn't the most talented, and I hope they're not going to hate me for saying that. They're not the most talented. I think we've had more talented senior classes, but here we are in the midst of a pretty special season. It's because they have led this team in an amazing way. They've come together. They've led our team to put aside their individual desires, wants, and needs for the betterment of the team. I think of a guy like Forrest Redland, he's the most amazing young man I think I've worked with in 19 years of collegiate athletics. And Forrest was an all-conference player for us, and he's a captain for us. And yet he has not been a starter in our secondary this year because we have a young man, Keontae Miles, who came in from Yukon, Oklahoma, who beat him out for the position. And now Forrest is still a huge member of our team and has contributed in unique ways, but he never complained. He never grumbled. He never questioned the coaches. He could, if there's anybody that could have been upset about not having a starting position or not playing as much as he used to for what he's meant to our program or what he's done here, it's Forrest Redland. But he's such an amazing young man that he wasn't going to he cares enough about MAC football and his teammates that he wasn't going to allow that to happen. And I really believe this senior class, I'll always remember them for how special they led this program, how unified they made our team this year. And again, very proud of the leadership of the captains, Glenn Hartford, Trey Norshinsky, and Forrest Redland. But the other seniors in our program too have been outstanding in that regard. A guy like Eben Johnson and Zach Gullerud and Eric Connor. Nick Hagersdorf has had a great year. I know he's made a lot of headlines, but we've got them all over the place. With Garrett Eichhorn, really proud of his efforts this year, and Ethan Carpenter and Brian Lynn is one of my favorite young men. Awanga Shalita, I know I'm missing some guys here, Trey Johnson and Jacob Simons and Daniel Abramowitz. There's probably more out there. Ben Holtmeyer, who's done some kicking for us. Just an awesome senior class, and tonight's our last practice with them. So I'm finding myself getting a little emotional here, but it's going to be pretty special. We always do a thing. We do a senior send-off at the end of Thursday's practice, which I think is pretty cool. Of course, I'm a little biased, and I'm not as hip as I used to be. Of course, I never was, but I think it's pretty cool what we do, and I'm excited for that tonight. And I'm excited to go out and play on Saturday, and I really hope that our team can play well to make sure that these seniors leave the field the last time with a Fighting Scots jersey on as winners. So, again, I think we've got a lot to play for. Whoever said it before and whatever question it was, they don't know the Fighting Scots. And I think that I hope that our players will be ready. So I went a lot of different directions there, Rob. Sorry, but this is the Tony Jennison Scots Scheme, right? I'm still
That's right, exactly. That's right, exactly.
So too bad you're stuck with me, people.
And I had to say, too, I don't know how you could say that you're not hip when people wanted you to be the Fonz. I mean, I'm trying to figure that one out there, but...
That's true. That is true. And we're still going to do that, right? You're Richie Cunningham and I'm the Fonz.
Yeah, if somebody gets those costumes, yeah, I'm up for it. Absolutely. Next up, we have Chris from Waseca, who I think I'm going to hear the most tactful answer you've ever given to me. But now that you have been in the Midwest Conference for a couple of years, are there referees that you are not happy about when they are calling the game for you on Saturday?
Not necessarily, no. Our job is to coach, and our players' job is to play, and the officials have a job to officiate the game the way they see fit. Now, we have disagreements at times with the calls that they make, but at the same time, they have different angles than us, and they see things, maybe a little differently. And, I really believe that the officials are trying to do a good job out there. For the most part, I think they do. I have had some issues at times, and sometimes I'd, have a lot of questions for the officials, and there's times where maybe I lose my temper. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but there's times where I get a little heated with them. But at the same time, I understand that they're trying to do a job, and And I can respect that. The approach that we have on our team is that, if the officials are making calls that we don't agree with, hey, that's out of our control. Don't whine about it. Don't complain about it. Focus on what you can control, and which is really our attitude and our effort. We can't control what the calls are going to be. We can't control, the defense can't control if the offense gives up the ball at the 1 yard line or whatever it is. So again, we have that mentality of bring it on. We can handle anything. And it doesn't matter the weather, doesn't matter the opponent, doesn't matter if the officials are making calls that we don't agree with. Bring it on. We can handle it. And that's got to be our mindset. So, no, I don't really have an issue with any of the officiating crews. In fact, I think I've got pretty good relationships with the officiating crews because I think I am pretty respectful out there. If we do have disagreements, I ask for explanations and they tell me. And, okay, usually I can understand why. There's only been a couple of handfuls of or a couple of times, not handfuls of times, just a couple of times where those explanations didn't meet my needs. And then basically I would let them know. And we also have the ability to evaluate them after the games, which I do all the time. And I take time to do that because I think their feedback, I would think that they want the feedback as well. So no, I don't, I'm very happy with the officiating that we've had in the Midwest Conference. I think the officials do a really good job, and again, they're going to make mistakes too. And shoot, I make mistakes as coaches. Our players make mistakes. Officials are going to make mistakes. So it's not something that I'm going to complain about.
Ben from Minneapolis would like to know if you've seen the new Vikings Stadium, and if so, what did you think?
I've only seen it from outside, and I thought it was large. I really haven't. I only saw it from driving past on the interstate. So no, I haven't been there. I haven't even watched a Vikings game on TV yet. I saw, I've seen bits and pieces here or there if they're on, but I haven't had the time to sit down and really watch a game. I plan to do that, after the season, probably not right away after the season, but a couple weeks after the season ends. I'm sure at some point I'll watch a little bit of NFL football, but no, I haven't seen the stadium. I'm looking forward to hopefully someday seeing it, but I'm not in a rush to go see it, quite honestly. I'm more looking forward to having some time to just be home and be a human being again. I've been a football coach for like 3.5 months. I haven't been a human being for a while, so I just want to do yard work and be home for a little bit. That's all I want right now.
Boy, that was a good lead into our next question from Jill from Madison, who says, I would think the amount of time that you have to spend away from home coaching is hard on your wife. What do you do to show your appreciation to her?
I don't do enough, I'll tell you that right now. My wife, Anna, is amazing. The night I met her in college, I went back to my roommate and said, I met the woman I'm going to marry tonight. He thought I was nuts, but I was right on, and I knew it. And we didn't date for a couple of years, but I knew it all that time. And she's amazing. She's a great mother. She's a great person. She's my best friend, and I don't do enough. I know that, and it's hard during the season because, especially road games. Because road games, you're gone Friday night, you're gone Saturday night because we're traveling back. Sunday comes around, and it's your mind's on the upcoming opponent. I do take some time on Sunday. I usually take about 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, hopefully maybe better some days, to be a human being. But Monday and Tuesdays are pretty long because of the recruiting aspect of things. So it gets hard during the season, but and I don't do as good a job as I should. But again, I think the best thing I can do is try to be present when I am home, and I think I get better at that every year. I'm still not very good at it, but you'll have to ask Anna about that question for a better answer.
And our last part today is, why is it great to be a Fighting Scot?
It's great to be a Fighting Scot because into our last game, and again, in my opinion, playing a meaningful game in that this program has never never had 8 wins in a season. We had 2 years ago, we had 9 wins, which was great. But we're fighting for 8 wins right now. We're fighting for second place in the conference, and we're fighting for our senior class to leave as the winningest senior class in school history. And I'm excited for that. Also, why it's great, shoot, the weather is spectacular here in Minnesota. If anybody knows from distance or not, but I'm looking out my window right now, and it's about 60 degrees in mid-November. That's fantastic. I know everyone thinks that we play with 3 feet of snow on the ground at the end of the year. Or at least all the recruits that we have think that. So I've been here 11 years now. Only 1 year did we have snow. It's snow during the tail end of the season, so it's not very common. And right now we've got some great weather. We've got our last real practice in pads and whatnot with our seniors tonight. So I'm gonna enjoy that here in a couple hours. I know that, and that's why it's great to be Fighting Scott.
I think some things that some people forget is, if I remember correctly, you said at the starting of the season that when coaches voted for where teams would finish out in the season, you guys were like in the bottom half of that vote. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, I think we were around there, somewhere in there. And I know we weren't. We were around the middle of the pack or on the lower part of everything, which isn't surprising. I mean, people think of Macalester and they know the academic standards here, and we don't have as large of a roster as a lot of different teams. But I think we've won football games because of our chemistry, because of our camaraderie, and because of our togetherness. And I really believe that we're very good at those things, and our players play hard because they care about one another. And I think we've beaten teams over the years that do have more talent, that do have larger rosters, that may be bigger, that may be faster. But we found ways to win because young men in our program care about one another, and hopefully that continues. If we can continue to bring in the right people, then it will continue. And I feel pretty good about where we're at with recruiting right now. So we'll have to see how that works out.
I'll say anybody who sees this kind of a disappointment when you're favored to finish, even fourth, and you finish in second, that's a pretty impressive season, I would say.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we've got to win to finish in second. If we don't, then we will finish in fourth. So we'll see what happens with it. But St. Norbert's, they're not going to be easy. I mean, they're a very talented team and things very well coached too. Dan McCarty and I go way back. We coached together at Wisconsin Eau Claire back in the late '90s, and he's really sharp. He's a great football mind and a great man too. I mean, a really good person, and I'm very happy for him. And when they hired him, I was happy for him, but I knew that it wasn't good for us because I knew that St. Norbert was going to be in really good hands and for the foreseeable future. And Dan's pretty special, I know that. And obviously they won the conference last year, so he's proving that already.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
All right, thank you for your time, Rob. I appreciate it.
We want to thank Coach Jennison for joining us on the Scots Scheme this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Macalester coach, please send them to us at TonyJennison@minorleaguesportsupport.com. That's TonyJennison@minorleaguesportsupport.com. Please have your questions to us by Wednesday evening so we can give the coach a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next time on the Scots Scheme.